In life, when you have to stop asking the world what it wants from you and you begin asking yourself, what do I really want? Not what my family expects, not what society has placed upon my shoulders, not what looks good in a photograph or a resume. What do I want? That question alone has the power to change your entire existence. Because when you finally pause long enough to face it, you realize most of us have been running, hustling, striving, yet never actually stopping to check the direction of the race. We live in a culture that glorifies more success, more recognition, more money, more stuff. But the truth is, you can chase more for a lifetime and never taste fulfillment. What I know is this: fulfillment does not come from more, it comes from aligning with your truest desire. And that begins with asking yourself with absolute honesty, what do I really want? It's a question so simple, yet so profound, that most people spend decades avoiding it. Because the answer might require you to step outside the life you've been conditioned to accept. It might require you to let go of people who don't belong on your journey. It might require you to embrace a truth that scares you, but that is the only way to live fully. Now let me tell you something important. Wanting is not selfish. That's what many of us were taught, that if you claim something for yourself, if you dare to say, this is what I want, you're being greedy, ungrateful, or self-centered. But the opposite is true. To declare what you really want is to declare that your life matters. It is to say, I was placed here on this earth with a unique purpose, and I honor that purpose by naming it out loud. That's not selfish, that's sacred, because when you choose in alignment with your truth, you give permission to others to do the same. I want you to think for a moment. Strip away the noise, the expectations, the shoulds, the obligations. Take all of that off the table. Imagine it's just you and your heart in the silence of the night. What rises up? What whispers? What pulls at you? Even when you try to ignore it, that is your real want. That's the voice of your soul, and it's been speaking all along. You just have to slow down enough to hear it. Let me share a truth. Clarity doesn't always come in lightning strikes. It often comes in whispers, in nudges, in the quiet dissatisfaction you feel when you're doing something that doesn't align. You know that feeling. You've been in a job that paid the bills but drained your spirit. You've stayed in relationships that looked fine on the outside but suffocated you on the inside. You've smiled in photos while silently wondering, is this all there is? Those whispers of discontent are your soul asking you to listen. And until you do, you will keep chasing and never arriving. Here's what I've learned. Life gives you clues. Every joy you feel is a breadcrumb. Every passion that lights you up is a breadcrumb. Every moment you lose track of time because you're so immersed in what you're doing, that's a breadcrumb. Follow them. Piece them together. They will lead you to the answer of what you really want. And once you claim it, life will begin rearranging itself to support that desire. Doors will open, people will appear, opportunities will align. But it all starts with clarity. And clarity takes courage, because when you finally admit what you really want, you might scare yourself. Maybe you want to leave the job that everyone else praises you for. Maybe you want to move to a place no one understands. Maybe you want to start over in a way that feels like failure to others but feels like freedom to you. That's when courage comes in. The courage to choose yourself. The courage to say, I will not live this one sacred life according to someone else's script. The courage to honor your truth even when others don't see it yet. Ask yourself, if I could not fail, if there were no limitations, what would I choose? What would my life look like if fear were not in the driver's seat? Sit with that question, write it down, speak it out loud. Because when you name it, you begin to create it. Thoughts become actions, actions become habits, and habits create a life. But it begins with that first step of clarity, naming what you really want. And let me remind you of this. It's not about the things. It's not about the car, the house, the job title. It's about the feeling those things promise. What you're really wanting is freedom, joy, love, peace, purpose. The things are just symbols, but the essence is deeper. If you chase only the symbol, you'll end up empty. But if you chase the essence, life will overflow with meaning. So tonight, when the noise quiets down and the world slows, I want you to ask yourself, what do I really want? Write it without censoring, without editing. Just let it pour out. And then, day by day, step by step, Begin to shape a life around that truth. Because the worst regret is not that you tried and failed. The worst regret is that you never gave yourself permission to even try. This is the beginning. This is the seed. Part 1 of the journey toward a life of intention, clarity, and freedom. The life where you stop living by default and begin living by design. Where you no longer wait for the world to tell you what you should want, because you already know, and when you know what you really want, you hold the key to everything else. That is the power of asking the question. That is the first step to living a life that is fully, unapologetically your own. When you begin to uncover what you really want, something extraordinary happens. You realize how much of your life has been lived on autopilot. You see how many decisions were shaped by fear, by expectation, by habit. And suddenly, the veil lifts, and you're faced with a truth that both terrifies and liberates you. I have the power to choose again. That's where transformation begins, not in blaming your past, not in regretting your choices, but in standing where you are today and declaring, from this moment forward, I will live differently. Here's the truth most people miss. Life is not happening to you. Life is responding to you. Every decision you make, every belief you hold, every action you take, it all shapes what comes next. When you live disconnected from what you really want, you send out confusion, and life mirrors that confusion right back to you. But when you get clear, when you boldly claim your desire, the universe rises to meet you with clarity. And suddenly, things that felt impossible start to align. Not because magic dust fell from the sky, but because you finally stopped resisting the path that was yours all along. But let's talk about resistance for a moment, because knowing what you want and allowing yourself to have it are two different things. Resistance shows up as doubt. It shows up as guilt. It shows up as the old voices in your head saying, "Who do you think you are? That's too much. You're not enough." Those voices don't belong to you. They are echoes of other people's fears that you've carried as your own. And you have to make a choice. Will you keep living under the weight of someone else's story, or will you write your own? Writing your own story takes courage, but it also takes faith. Faith that you were not placed here by accident. Faith that your desires are not random. Faith that what you want deeply is connected to who you are meant to be. Because here's what I know for sure. Your desire is a roadmap. It's guiding you toward the highest expression of your life. When you honor it, you step into alignment. When you deny it, you suffer. And life keeps whispering, nudging, sometimes even shaking you awake, until you finally pay attention. So I want you to take inventory. Ask yourself right now, where in my life am I living out of alignment? Where am I saying yes when my soul is screaming no? Where am I pretending to be satisfied when deep inside I feel the emptiness? Don't run from those answers. They are pointing you to the places where change is necessary, and I promise you, the cost of ignoring them will always be higher than the cost of facing them. Now let's get real about something. Clarity is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront the gap between where you are and where you want to be. It shines a light on the compromises you've made, the dreams you've set aside, the truth you've buried, but discomfort is not your enemy. Discomfort is the doorway to growth. It's life's way of saying, you are ready to rise higher. And if you can sit with that discomfort long enough, if you can lean into it instead of running from it, you'll discover strength and freedom on the other side. Think about this. Every person you admire, every story of transformation you've ever heard began with someone daring to ask, "What do I really want?" And then they were brave enough to follow the answer. They didn't have all the resources. They didn't have the guarantee. They didn't even have the roadmap. What they had was clarity, courage, and the decision to take one step at a time. And with each step, the path revealed itself. That is how transformation unfolds, not in one giant leap, but in a series of faithful steps guided by your truth. But here's the part that matters most. Your real want is not just about you. When you align with it, you become a vessel for something greater. Your joy inspires others. Your courage gives others permission to be brave. Your freedom creates ripples of freedom in the people around you. That's the beauty of living your truth. It doesn't just liberate you, it liberates everyone who witnesses you. So let me ask you again, what do you really want? Not the surface answer, not the convenient answer, not the answer that earns you applause. The real answer, the one that keeps you awake at night, the one that both excites and terrifies you, the one that feels too big to say out loud. That's the one. And until you claim it, until you start moving toward it, a part of you will always feel unfulfilled. I want you to imagine yourself 10 years from now. If nothing changes, if you keep doing what you're doing today, how will you feel? Will you be proud or will you be filled with regret? Now imagine a different scenario. Imagine you take the risk, you choose the path, you honor the desire. Even if you stumble, even if you fall, will you not still be proud that you tried, that you dared to live true, that you gave your one life a chance to be extraordinary? That is the difference clarity makes. That is the gift of asking the question and answering it with courage. So here we are at the edge of a new beginning. You've asked the question, you've allowed the truth to rise, and now the challenge is this. Will you honor it? Will you stop betraying yourself for the sake of comfort or approval? Will you take one step, just one step, toward the life you really want? Because that's all it takes to begin. One honest decision, one courageous act, one moment of alignment, and that moment can change everything. This is where the journey deepens. This is where you stop settling for less and start reaching for more. Not more things, but more truth, more freedom, more life. And when you do, you won't just know what you want. You will finally begin to live it. When you finally allow yourself to ask the question, what do I really want? And you begin to honor the answer, you step into a new dimension of living. You stop being a passive character in someone else's story and become the author of your own. And let me tell you something. There is nothing more liberating than realizing you are not bound by your past choices. You can choose again. You can begin again. You can write a different ending. But that power only comes when you give yourself permission to want what you want without apology. We've been conditioned to believe that wanting is dangerous, that desire is selfish. But the truth is, your real want is a compass. It points you to where your soul longs to go. And if you ignore it, you drift. You wander in circles. You live half a life. But when you lean into it, when you embrace it fully, you align with your purpose. And purpose is where life begins to feel alive again. Purpose is where your heart beats louder, where mornings don't feel heavy, where even challenges carry meaning. That is the gift of listening to your true want. It reconnects you to the pulse of your own existence. Now, here's the challenge. Knowing what you want is only the first step. Acting on it is the next, and that's where most people stop, because action demands risk. Action demands that you leave behind the safety of what you know for the possibility of what you desire. And the unknown is always frightening. But here's what I've learned. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is a signal that you're stepping into territory that matters. Fear is a sign that you're growing, that you're stretching beyond the boundaries of the familiar. And if you can move with fear, if you can carry it with you without letting it control you, then fear becomes fuel instead of a cage. Ask yourself, what is one step I can take today toward what I really want? Don't think about the whole staircase. Don't get overwhelmed by the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Just one step, because one step builds momentum, and momentum creates change. Too many people get paralyzed because they think they have to see the whole journey before they begin. But you don't. You just need enough light for the next step. Take that step, and the next one will reveal itself. That is how dreams are built, in steps, not leaps. But let me also remind you, not everyone will understand. The moment you start living in alignment with your real want, you will disrupt the expectations of others. Some people will resist, some will question, some will even criticize. But remember this, their discomfort is not your burden. Their lack of vision is not your limitation. When people cannot see what you see, it does not mean your dream is wrong. It simply means your dream was not given to them, it was given to you. And you owe it to yourself and to the life entrusted to you to follow it. Think of it this way: every extraordinary life you admire, every person who has inspired you, every story of transformation you've ever heard, they all share one thing in common. They honored what they really wanted, even when others didn't understand. They stepped out, sometimes alone, sometimes trembling, but always committed to their truth. And because they did, their lives became a testimony to what is possible when you choose courage over conformity. So, I ask you, are you willing to be misunderstood for the sake of your truth? Are you willing to walk away from applause if it means walking toward alignment? Are you willing to risk being judged, rejected, or doubted if it means finally living the life you were meant to live? These are not easy questions, but these are the questions that separate those who exist from those who truly live. And here's another truth: what you really want will stretch you. It will demand growth. It will require you to shed old habits, outdated beliefs, and limited thinking. You cannot step into a new life while clinging to the patterns of the old. That means you will have to let go. Let go of the excuses. Let go of the stories that say you're not enough. Let go of the belief that it's too late. Let go of the comfort of playing small. Because what you want requires all of you. It requires the highest, most authentic version of yourself. And until you rise to meet it, it will remain just out of reach. But let me remind you, growth is worth it. Every tear, every risk, every step into the unknown, it's worth it. Because what's waiting for you on the other side is freedom. Freedom to wake up each day knowing you are living in truth. Freedom to no longer carry the weight of pretending. Freedom to live a life that feels like yours. And that freedom is priceless. So tonight, as you reflect, I want you to sit with this question again: what do I really want? And then I want you to add another: what am I willing to let go of so I can have it? Because your want will always ask for something in return. It will ask you to release the old so you can embrace the new. And the sooner you surrender, the sooner you step into alignment. This is the power of clarity and courage combined. This is the moment where desire becomes destiny. This is where you stop waiting for permission and start granting it to yourself. And when you do, you will not only change your life, you will light a path for others who are still afraid to ask the question. Because nothing is more contagious, more inspiring, more powerful than a person who is fully alive, fully awake, and fully aligned with what they really want. And you've asked the question, you've faced the truth, you've admitted, maybe for the first time in your life, what it is you really want. But here's the next challenge. How do you hold on to that vision when the world tries to pull it out of your hands? Because make no mistake, once you decide to live aligned with your true desire, you will be tested. Life will ask, do you mean it? And every distraction, every obstacle, every doubt will come rushing in to see if you're strong enough to stand firm. That's when discipline comes in. Not the kind of discipline that feels like punishment, but the kind that feels like devotion. Devotion to yourself. Devotion to the dream planted inside you. Discipline is what bridges the gap between desire and reality. Wanting is powerful, but wanting without commitment is just a wish. When you discipline yourself to act in alignment with your want, even on the days when it's hard, even on the days when you feel small, you begin to build a life brick by brick, choice by choice, aligned with your deepest truth. Let me tell you something important. What you really want will never be achieved in a single grand gesture. It will be built through small, consistent, intentional steps. Daily steps, the conversations you have, the choices you make, the habits you practice. These are the threads that weave the fabric of your future. Too many people wait for the perfect moment, the lightning bolt, the sign from above. But life rarely works that way. The sign you are waiting for is the fact that you are still breathing. You are alive. That is your permission slip. And the next step is yours to take. But here's what often gets in the way: distraction. We live in a world that is noisy, busy, demanding. Everywhere you turn, someone is trying to tell you what to want. The advertisements, the social media feeds, the comparisons, they all whisper that you're behind, that you need more, that you should be different. And if you're not careful, those voices drown out the quiet truth of your own heart. That's why you need to create silence. You need to carve out moments of stillness where you can return to the question without interference. Because in the silence, the truth always rises. And if you don't make space for it, you'll end up living a life that belongs to everyone but you. Ask yourself this: am I living my want, or am I living someone else's expectations? That's a hard question, but it's necessary. Because many people wake up at the end of their lives and realize they were running a race they never even wanted to win. They collected trophies, titles, and accomplishments that looked impressive but left them empty. Don't let that be your story. Choose now, choose today. Because every day you postpone your truth, you drift further from the life that was meant for you. Now, let's talk about resilience. Because once you commit to what you want, setbacks are guaranteed. You will stumble. You will face rejection. You will have days when everything seems to fall apart. But resilience is the ability to rise again, to keep moving, to remember why you started. Resilience doesn't mean you never get knocked down. It means you refuse to stay down. And every time you rise, you grow stronger, wiser, more determined. That strength becomes the armor that carries you through. Think about it. The people who inspire you most are not the ones who had it easy. They are the ones who faced resistance, who endured the storm, who kept showing up despite the odds. Their stories move you because they remind you of what's possible. And your story, your journey to what you really want, has the power to inspire others in the same way. When you live aligned with your truth, you don't just change your life, you light a fire in others to change theirs too. So let's get practical. Write down what you want, put it where you can see it daily, and then ask yourself each morning, what one thing can I do today that aligns me with this vision? Just one thing. Do that one thing, and tomorrow, do one more. Because success is not built in leaps, it is built in layers. And every small act of alignment adds up to transformation. Remember this: you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to know every step. You just have to stay faithful to the process. Stay devoted to the truth, stay consistent in your actions, and when doubt creeps in, as it will, return to the question. Let it center you. Let it remind you why you started. Let it pull you back to your truth. And here's the promise I want you to carry with you. When you live aligned with what you really want, even the struggle feels meaningful. Even the hard days carry purpose. Because you're no longer fighting for someone else's dream, you're building your own. And there is no greater satisfaction than knowing you are living a life that is truly yours. So, stand firm, hold the vision, commit to the process, and no matter what resistance comes your way, keep moving toward the life that is calling you. Because your want is not random. It is not small. It is not impossible. It is your soul's direction. And once you honor it, nothing can stop you from stepping into the fullness of your life. When you reach this stage, something profound happens. You are no longer just asking the question, you are living it, you are walking in it, you are shaping your days around it. But with that comes a responsibility. The responsibility to protect the vision you've claimed. Because the truth is, once you discover what you really want, the world will test you again and again. And the greatest test is not whether you can see the vision, but whether you can stay faithful to it when it's inconvenient, when it's lonely, when it takes longer than you hoped. This is where faith deepens. Faith is not just believing in what you can see. Faith is believing in what you cannot yet see, but what you know in the depths of your being to be true. Faith is holding on when the evidence around you says, let go. Faith is waking up each morning and choosing to believe that your want, your dream, your desire is not in vain, because it's not. The very fact that you want it so deeply that it keeps pulling at you is proof that it is meant for you. Desire is divine direction. And when you honor it, you are honoring the one who placed it in you. But let's be real, faith alone is not enough. Faith without action is just hope. You need both. You need to believe and you need to act. You need to see it in your spirit and then step toward it in your life. Because every step you take builds evidence. Every small win reinforces the vision. And every day you act in alignment with your want, you strengthen your faith in what's possible. Now, here's something important. What you really want is not always about a destination. It's about the person you are becoming along the way. Because when you pursue your truth, you grow. You shed layers of fear, doubt, and insecurity. You learn resilience. You discover courage you didn't know you had. And the version of you who arrives at the vision will be stronger, wiser, more alive than the version of you who first asked the question. The journey itself transforms you, and that is just as valuable as the outcome. I want you to picture something. Imagine you are planting a seed. You bury it in the soil, you water it, you wait. At first, nothing happens. You look at the ground and see no evidence of change. And doubt whispers, it's not working. But underground, where you cannot see, roots are forming. The seed is taking hold, growth is happening in the unseen, and if you keep tending to it, one day the sprout breaks through. That is exactly how your want works. Just because you can't see results yet doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means the roots are forming, and when the time is right, the vision will break through. Your only job is to keep nurturing it. And yes, patience will be required. We live in a world of instant gratification. We want it now. But what you really want, the life you are meant to live, cannot be microwaved. It must be cultivated. It must be earned. It must be grown through time, through faith, through consistent action. And the waiting is not wasted. The waiting is preparing you, shaping you, strengthening you. So when the moment arrives, you will be ready to carry it. Here's the beauty of it. As you move closer to what you really want, you will notice that your energy changes. The heaviness you once carried begins to lift. The sense of emptiness begins to fade. Because you are no longer betraying yourself. You are no longer living in conflict with your soul. You are aligned. And alignment feels like peace. Alignment feels like freedom. Alignment feels like coming home to yourself after years of wandering. But don't be surprised if this alignment costs you some relationships, some habits, even some identities you once clung to. That's part of the process. Not everyone can walk with you into the new season of your life. Some people were only meant for the chapter you're leaving behind, and that's okay. Bless them, release them, and keep moving forward. Because you cannot step into what you really want while dragging along everything and everyone that no longer fits. Letting go is not a loss. It's a clearing. It's making space for the new. So here's what I want you to do. Recommit. Right now. Not to the easy version of your want, but to the real version. The one that scares you. The one that excites you. The one that demands more of you. Recommit to nurturing it, protecting it, and acting on it every single day. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for certainty. Don't wait until you feel ready. Because you may never feel ready, but you are ready. If the desire is in you, it is because the capacity is in you too. And when you live this way, when you stay faithful, when you stay aligned, when you keep showing up despite the obstacles, you create not just a life, but a legacy. You show others what is possible. You leave behind a trail of courage, authenticity, and truth. And long after you're gone, your story will live on as a testimony to the power of one person choosing to honor what they really wanted. So hold steady, stand firm, stay faithful. Keep nurturing your vision even when no one else sees it, because the day will come when it blooms, and when it does, you'll look back and realize that every moment of faith, every act of discipline, every risk you took was worth it. Because you didn't just chase a dream, you lived your truth, and there is no greater victory than that.